The Phantom Zone now has a warden. Okay, so a 12-issue story arc has just concluded in the pages of Action Comics. The focus of that story was the Phantom Zone. I won't go into the details here, because this is a short, but it was fairly boilerplate stuff. Superman dealing with villains inside the zone, and then him and his allies dealing with prisoners who'd escaped. While in the Phantom Zone, Superman had the assistance of an old friend, Mon-El. Now you might recognize that name as being a member of the 31st century team, the Legion of Superheroes. And you'd be right. Okay, so Mon-El's original story was that he showed up on Earth when Clark was still a teenager. He had lost his memory, but he had all the same powers as Clark, and he also had a vague memory of Jor-El, Clark's father. So Clark assumed that he was his long-lost brother, and gave him the name Mon-El. Mon, because he found him on a Monday, and El, because that's the family name. So Mon-El stayed on the Kent farm and they lived as brothers for a few weeks, until Clark noticed that Mon-El wasn't vulnerable to kryptonite. So, wanting to see if all of this was some trick and whether Mon-El would feign vulnerability, he painted a clump of lead to look like kryptonite and gave it to Mon-El. Mon-El touched the lead and weakened, and he wasn't faking. It was also now that Mon-El got his memory back. He remembered that he isn't a Kryptonian at all, but rather a Daxamite, a race that split from the Kryptonians millennia ago, when they left to explore the universe. What's more, lead poisons Daxamites in much the same way as kryptonite poisons Kryptonians. The only difference is that this lead poisoning is always fatal. Seeing no other way to save his friend, Clark sends Mon-El, whose real name is Largand, to the Phantom Zone, where he won't age and the poisoning won't kill him. Superman promises to continue searching for a cure, but it isn't until 1,000 years later that the members of the Legion of Superheroes found one. He then joins them. Okay, so as I said, that's the original story. There have been other versions, some with small changes, like Clark giving Mon-El kryptonite in a lead box rather than painted lead when testing him, or big ones, like the Legion's Mon-El being a descendant of Superman's. The story in action pretty much follows the original, so it's this Mon-El who helps Superman, and this Mon-El who is then made Warden of the Phantom Zone. Which seems like a pretty good thing, because Superman banishing villains to a prison dimension always seemed a bit out of character. And Mon-El, as Warden, now has the ability to grant parole to those prisoners he feels deserve it. What does that look like? Well, those repentant parolees will go and live in the bottled city of Kandor. All in all, a positive step, and a significant addition to Superman lore.